It's a conflict known as Africa's First World War and has led to the deaths of over 6 million people between 1998 and 2008. The last decade has seen continuing conflict in eastern DRC by rebel militia groups. The DRC is rich in minerals and huge in size. It's also a big problem for the populations of the Great Lakes region, as recent talks don't seem to have brought peace any closer. With conflicting agendas both internal and external, Africa Today asks if Presidents Kagame, Kabila and Museveni can be trusted to broker a lasting peace.
It's one of Africa's most intractable conflicts, involving thousands of troops from the UN, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the notorious M23 rebels, and their alleged Rwandan backers. But despite regular attempts to revive some kind of peace process, lives continue to be destroyed in eastern Congo. At the last international conference on the Great Lakes region on September the 5th, Presidents Kabila, Museveni and Kagame committed themselves to ending the conflict. But recent weeks have seen a broken ceasefire, bombs landing in Rwanda, the deaths of UN soldiers, and increased anger from Congolese civilians. Talks are ongoing at ministerial level, but with trust in such short supply, what will it take to finally deliver peace to this troubled region?
I'm Vuiswa Ngobongwana, welcoming you to Africa Today. As you just heard, a regional heads of state summit on the DRC crisis was held in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, last month. The objective was to find, quote, a lasting solution, unquote, to the ongoing conflict. It threatens to spill over into Rwanda as we speak, after 36 mortar bombs landed in the border district of Rubavu. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry recently stated that the DRC crisis has many actors and interests that are both known and unknown, which makes it difficult to implement actions to bring stability to the region. So, where lies the hope for peace in the DRC? With me to discuss this question and so much more, we have Vava Tampa, the founder and CEO of Save the Congo, Dr. Phil Clark, who's a lecturer on international politics at SOAS. And joining us on the line from Paris, we're welcoming Peace Ambassador Stanislas Longo Bingabe, and he works for the Great Lakes region. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much. If I could start with you, Peace Ambassador Bingabe, could you tell us what are your thoughts when you hear about the armed groups still operating in the area? Do you have any information about who these groups are?
The truth is that there is a proliferation of groups in this area, in the Great Lake regions. I thought the best known is the M23. I just wanted to note that those several groups have the main mission to control strategic area only for businesses.
What kind of business?
Only for a lot of businesses. You know, if you get a map, you will see that. I'm really sorry, my English is broken, but I'll try to do my best. If you just get a map, you will find that all those groups are only controlling areas containing petroleum or other minerals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're talking about resources, I mean, which, if I could bring you in, Vava, seems to be, to some analysts, to be really the main reason why this conflict seems to be unsolvable. The West doesn't seem to be giving that much interest into the conflict. We don't hear much about it. I mean, what are your thoughts as you hear about these various militia groups that seem to be the cause of the problem? Are they the cause of the problem?
No, militia gangs are not the cause of the issues, and that has been one of the problems we've had over the past couple of years. People talk about M23, and before M23 had the CNDP, and before CNDP had the RCD Goma, but their patron remains one single man, who is Paul Kagame in Rwanda. So if you want to get rid of the M23, the CNDP or the RCD Goma, you need to deal with Paul Kagame in Rwanda. That is one of the key elements. But that is the external part, the key element.
Well, let me just bring in here Dr. Phil. I mean, Rwanda and Kagame do seem to be pointed at rather consistently as the bad guys, the spoiler in this mix. What are your thoughts on Kagame's role?
I think Rwanda has played a very important role in the conflict in eastern Congo, and I think that Vava is right up to a point that Rwanda has meddled in very dangerous ways in Congo. But I think, as is often the case in Africa, this conflict is extremely complex and it has multiple causes. I think Rwanda's involvement is one, but fundamental weaknesses within the Congolese state, I think, is another very important cause of this conflict. And the Congolese state itself has also supported various militias and rebel groups at different times. Along with Rwanda, we've also seen the role of Uganda and other countries in the region also backing various rebel groups and even putting their own armies on Congolese soil at different times for their own interests. So I think when we talk about Congo, we have to recognise that there are many different actors with many different interests and many different factors explain why this conflict has lasted as long as it has.
And let me just bring in the ambassador, because the UN mission, which we have understood, has spent well over $12 billion and seemingly hasn't moved an inch towards success and resolution. I mean, why is this UN mission failing so badly?
Yes, in my opinion, United Nations. Sure, they have tried to do their best in this area, but as you may know, each country in this area is a specific case and demonstrated different or fluctuating strategic positioning. So it's difficult for United Nations to have a strategy for bringing peace only in DRC when they can do the same effort in Rwanda, in Uganda, because all those countries are concerned by those situations. So, in my point, we need to have a global strategy for this area, not only in DR Congo, because DR Congo is still a specific case, Rwanda is a specific case, Uganda is a specific case.
Right.
We need to have a global mission, a global vision to bring peace, even in Uganda, even in Rwanda, and in DRC. We cannot talk separately.
Okay, if I could just interrupt you there briefly, which begs the question, Vava, a world focus on this area? Because it does seem that some detachment is necessary to actually get the broader point of view. What's the likelihood of that happening?
I tell you what, I think the world is beginning to make the right move. We are now, heading to the right directions. You have, foreign policymakers in Britain, in the US, actually now talking directly, about the role of Kagame. Yes, as Dr. Clark mentioned, Uganda has played a role indeed, but Kagame is uniquely placed in ethnicizing and militarizing disputes and conflict in Congo. So in that sense, that Kagame stands alone in a unique level.
Could you just clarify for some of our viewers who may not be aware? Obviously, this sounds like part of the legacy of the Rwandan genocide.
Well, that has been one of the broad arguments advanced by Kagame and Kagame's cheerleaders, that the reason that Kagame continued to fund and support militia gangs in Congo is because they are trying somehow to, to protect the Tutsi minorities in Rwanda. That is absolutely false. There is no truth in that whatsoever. Okay. The reason which Kagame continued to fund militia gangs in Congo and so forth is because they want to get hold of Congo's natural resources. That is one element, but there is also a political side of it. Clearly, and now I think Kigali is beginning to realize that the continuation of funding militia gangs in Congo has indeed angered a vast majority, a large number of Congolese people. And there is fear now of what would the Congolese of tomorrow do in regards to what the crimes that Kagame has done in Congo. You cannot continue in the name of defending one ethnic group who are the Tutsi. You cannot continue to kill millions of people. Okay. And in case of Congo, Kagame has played a role in the killings of over 6 million Congolese.
Okay, Dr. Clark, your thoughts on Vava Tampa's? feelings here?
Again, I wouldn't disagree with everything that Vava says, except that, again, I'm not sure we can simply point to one cause. And I think we would be missing a big part of the Congolese picture if we saw Rwanda as the only cause. I think Rwanda has played a very dangerous role and a very meddling role in Eastern Congo. But again, I think Uganda and a range of other rebel groups have been responsible here. And I think we also have to recognise that the Congolese state itself has been an enormous predator against its own civilians. We've seen a highly ill-disciplined Congolese army for the best part of the last 15 years that not only has supported rebel groups, but itself also committed atrocities against Congolese civilians. And until we see, I think, a real reckoning with the involvement of the Congolese state, as well as these other actors in the region, then we won't be talking comprehensively about what's happening in Congo at the moment.
Can I just come in
okay,
quickly on
briefly.
what Dr. Clark mentioned?
Yes.
Indeed, he is also right to some extent. Indeed, the chief reasons this crisis continues to unfold is the crisis of legitimacy, some say leadership in Congo. But the whole argument about the Congolese army committing atrocities, that argument people really need to look into, because there is no such thing as the Congolese army.
Yeah.
Anyone who has read into the crisis in Congo will tell you what you have in Congo is a collection and a sum of different militia gangs who have been brought together at a different peace deals, but those militia gangs have retained a parallel chain of command. So every now and then, in the same years, if you go back in 1998, Rwanda invaded Congo as well as Uganda, they created RCD Goma. RCD Goma was full of Rwandan soldiers, but it was given a Congolese name, which became CNDP, which became M23. And you have the same thing with Uganda. So every now and then, those different plot of militia gang would break out and would commit atrocities, and then the name of the Congolese would be tarnished and brought together and say, listen, look, here are the Congolese killing each other. Actually, these are not the Congolese. Some of them are actually former Rwandan and Ugandan soldiers.
Well,
but
okay, let me bring in the peace ambassador. Let me bring in the peace ambassador.
Right.
I mean, it does seem that Rwanda is being painted as the bad guy here. I mean, from your perspective, you seem to have a broader point of view. You're trying to bring the commonalities between the contradictory parties together. What do you see as a starting point, leaping on from the platform of the recent Heads of State Summit? What is the starting point that needs to be tackled?
In my point, they can, all leaders of this country can even for several times try to make summits, try to talk about peace in the region, but if they do not consider an important actor to restore hope and to work with advance for peace. I mean, civil society of Uganda, of Rwanda, and of DR Congo, because they are how can I say it? They are in the action.
Okay, well, let me just ask you a final question before we go to a break to our Facebook pages. What motivates you? I mean, you're a former banker turned into a peace ambassador. What is motivating you to do the work in your country?
Well, I'm still a banker. I'm not a former banker. I'm still a banker. But, I belong to a generation of men and women who are voluntarist and free of any complex. Today, we won't have more businesses in this area if we do not try to bring peace, not only for DR Congo, but for all the region. And then we'll do business. We'll do business better.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts there. Sorry to interrupt you. Thank you so much. Obviously, Congo's economic well-being for the benefit of the Congolese really has not been a priority discussion. So thank you for raising that issue there, Ambassador. But before we move on to part two, where we're discussing in more depth potential solutions to this conflict, let's have a look at what you're saying about what's happening in the DRC. And our Facebook fan page has been awash with comments this week. The first one that we picked out is from Lucia Armar. Lucia says, I don't hold out much hope for peace in DRC unless it's carved up. The landmass is as big as Europe in its current state. It's basically ungovernable by any one government. A second thought here from Kizi El Darami. Kizi says, with so much uncertainty about how much Kagame and his government are actually fueling this conflict, it's hard to see how a resolution can be achieved, with Rwanda at the quote-unquote peace table. And final passionate thoughts from Magoma Donald Kedebone, who says Kabila, Kagame and Museveni cannot be trusted at all. They are just puppets of those stealing Congolese minerals. The only solution is to hang these three and throw them to hell. Passionate thoughts there, but obviously not a political solution, but an example of the depth of feeling that this area brings up. Let us know what you think, not just about the Congo, but any other areas of Africa that you feel we should be covering. And there are a number of ways you can do that. Look at this.
Keep your thoughts coming in. Email africa@presstv.co.uk or text us on +44 78 00 00 8086. Or you can go to our Facebook fan page, Africa Today, Press TV London. Or you can now follow us on Twitter. We are at Africa Today TV.
And we continue our discussion on the DRC conflict. And let's bring you in, Dr. Phil. We're looking at potential solutions. We've kind of outlined the problem in fairly skeletal fashion. But as you look forward, what advice would you personally give, if you were a diplomat, to these heads of states about a way forward?
Well, I think the first piece of advice would be that they have to keep talking. I think there's a danger at the moment that all of the parties concerned believe that this conflict will only be resolved through the barrel of the gun, and I think that would be extremely dangerous for the region. The second thing, I think, in many ways, is to go far beyond what we've heard from Vava, because I think there's a danger that if we take Vava's idea that this is only about Rwanda, then we end up with a very superficial idea of the causes of the conflict, and we end up with a very superficial idea of what should be done. The reality is that you could take Rwanda out of the equation in Eastern Congo and you would still have extreme amounts of conflict and you would still have extreme amounts of degradation. What we need really is a multifaceted approach to this conflict that deals firstly at the regional level. So I think this is where the regional heads of state play a very important role. Yeah. But we also have to recognise that there are national concerns, and I think that means doing something about the very poor state of governance at the national level in Congo. And perhaps the level that gets talked about the least in the case of Congo is the community level, where we still see a high degree of particularly ethnically based tensions between various groups. And that's a very subtle level of society that I think is often neglected, and it requires very delicate processes of inter-ethnic reconciliation. So until we're willing to deal with the regional, the national and the community level, I really don't think that we're going to be tackling the case of Congo in its entirety.
And what do you think, Vava, might be the catalyst for that kind of broad, constructive overview? Might it take an organisation like SADC, perhaps, to bring those kind of issues to the table?
Well, let me just speak on a couple of points Dr. Clark has mentioned. I think it's disheartening, disappointing that he's underplaying the role played by Kagame and Rwanda in Congo. Look, we have over 6 million deaths. Those people were not killed just by chance. Those people were killed because Congo was invaded. And after the invasion, which ended officially in 2003, Kagame continued to fund militia gangs, and that has created a humanitarian crisis, which has led to the death of millions of people.
But even if you took Kagame out, as Dr. Phil Clark has said, there would still be inter-ethnic conflict.
Indeed, we have a structural issue in Congo, and I'm one of the first people in the world to tell you that the key problem in Congo, the first issue in Congo, is the crisis of legitimacy in Kinshasa. If you deal with Kabila, the Kinshasa government, everything else will change. But having said that, we cannot undermine what Kigali has done. If we stop Kagame from funding and financing militia gangs in Congo, that would give the Congolese enough room to breathe and to resolve their issues. Because this is the issue. Whenever Rwanda support militia gangs in Congo, it takes our mind away from looking at Kinshasa and we start looking at Kigali. And that gives Kinshasa a free ride. And that's an issue which
which begs the question, Dr. Phil. I mean, you're talking about the kind of level of governance, the quality of governance? You know, I mean, what can the respective civil societies do to bring pressure to their respective governments about actually improving their ability to govern? Because that seems to be the root of the problem.
No, I think that's right. And I think one of the problems that we see in Congo at the moment is that the West has suddenly decided that Kabila is their man.
Yeah.
We saw highly flawed elections in Congo 2 years ago in which, with absolutely no hesitation at all, that the West anointed Kabila as the president of Congo and turned a blind eye to massive rigging of that election. So until we see, I think as Vava quite rightly points out, some degree of legitimate government in Kinshasa that has a broad-based support of the Congolese people, then we're going to see many of these problems continue. Now, Vava says, again, and I think it's a very common view in Congo, that everything comes back to Kigali. And I think there, again, there's a complacency about this conflict. I think in Congo there has been a lack of dedication at the political level, but also at the civil society level, to really take responsibility for Congolese problems. Yes, Rwanda is part of this, but there was a period between roughly 2009 and 2011 when, in actual fact, Rwanda's relations with Congo improved drastically. But did we see a significant decrease in conflict in the east? We did not, because Rwanda was taken out of the picture, but we still saw the Congolese army committing atrocities. We still saw various other rebel groups committing atrocities. So yes, Rwanda plays a very important role here, but there are other factors, and particularly Congolese factors, that also have to be dealt with.
And also, if I could just broaden it a little bit, a lot of people are very suspicious of the Western interests who are benefiting mightily from the mineral wealth of the Congo. I mean, in an ideal situation, what role would you like to see the West playing, particularly with the idea of brokering some kind of peace for the Congolese people?
Behind every dictator in Africa, there is a Western power, and we know it. Behind Kagame, you have the US and Britain, who are now beginning to change their views. Behind Kabila, sadly, you also have different Western powers. Now, even France is somehow becoming reluctant. So we know that fact, yes. and clearly, Congo has enormous amount of wealth.
So you think the root of the answer obviously must come from an African-centered solution, because Europe has got its own agenda?
Europe can play a major and incredible role in finding a solution in a crisis in Congo, because indeed Europe has funded some of the men responsible for the crisis. But I just want to pick on some of the points Dr. Phil has made.
Very briefly, we have less than a minute.
So he's absolutely right on the elections, but the point he needs to understand, this is a crucial point, that whenever Kigali does something silly in Congo, it takes our minds away from Kinshasa, and that's the point. All the Kagame cheerleaders and choirs need to understand that the reason we talk about Kigali is because whenever Kagame funds and support militia gangs, it takes our eyes away from Kinshasa, and we now have to look at the crisis and the killings and the raping of our mothers and daughters in the Kivu. That's the point. That's the reason Congolese are focused on Kigali.
Okay, well, finally, a focus on Kigali consistently from Vava Tampa. Thank you so much, Dr. Phil Clark, for your contribution as well. What do you think? Let's broaden the discussion. Let us know on our Facebook fan page. Time is against us. Thanks to all who've been sending emails. Do continue to email africa@presstv.co.uk or text +44 7800 8086, or you can tweet if you fancy at Africa Today TV. Many thanks to Vava Tampa, Dr. Phil Clark, and Peace Ambassador Stanislas Longo Gingabe. Join us next week for another edition of Africa Today, but until then, from me, Vuiswang Ngobongwana, on behalf of the team, thank you so much for watching.